I'm going to show you something that I like to call the L chart. And the L chart has many uses, but for now I'm just going to show you a few of the things that it can do. So first of all, let's learn how to make an L chart. So we take two numbers, let's say 32 and 24, and we are going to look for common factors. So we're looking for any common factor that is not the number 1. So, for example, 2 goes into both of these, and 4 goes into both of them. Lots of different numbers go into both of them. But let's just pick anything. It doesn't matter which one. And I usually like to just pick whichever one first comes to me. So I said 2 first, so let's just start with 2. And we say 32 divided by 2 is 16, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. Pretty good. Then we ask ourselves, are there any other common factors? And I immediately see that they're both even numbers, so I know there's more factors, so I'm going to make another little L. And 2 goes into both of those. That's 8, and that's 6. And look at that, they're still both even, so I know 2 goes into both those. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now, the only thing that goes into both of those is 1. So we know that we can stop. We've made our L chart. Now, L chart tells us a couple things. First of all, it tells us that the lowest common multiple of 32 and 24 is all of the L. If I take this whole L for lowest, see how that makes it kind of an L? The lowest common multiple is equal to 2 times 2 times 2 times 4 times 3. And that in this case happens to be 96. So the lowest common multiple of 32 and 24 is 96. And this next part's going to come really, really important. So let me get rid of this little loop. The really cool thing, and this is really important, is 96. The way we get from 32 to 96 is we multiply 32 times 3. Do you see how I look diagonally across? And you probably figured out that the way we get from 24 to 96 is we multiply it by 4. And the way we got 96, though, was multiplying that whole L. So 32 diagonally down to the bottom times 3 is 96, and 24 diagonally down to the bottom is 4. 4 times 24 is 96. So let's look at some more stuff on there. Let's look at finding the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor, I like to say the greatest common factor, the GCF, greatest common factor, kind of looks at the leg of the L, the leg, and we kind of remember that because GCF starts with G, and leg has a hard G in it, is just the leg multiplied together. So that's 2 times 2 times 2. And if you want to think about it mathematically, all of these things over here are factors. And so the greatest common factor is just the product of all the common factors. So we take 2 times 2 times 2 in this case, which is 8. And 8 is the greatest common factor. Now, a couple more things I want to show with this. So let's get rid of this. Undo the world here. If I look at the fraction 24 over 32, then I can write an equivalent fraction that's equal to 12/16. And another equivalent fraction is 6/8. And the simplest fraction is always on the very bottom. So if I need to simplify 24/32, I can just make an L chart and read the bottom row and get my simplest form. So that's kind of a nice little trick. And again, I'm showing you a lot of things. You'll probably want to watch this video multiple times and pause and when you need to, and then repeat the parts you need to. But this next thing is going to be really cool. I want to show you how to use an L chart to add fractions. So here comes our L chart to add fractions. I just put that over there in the corner to help us out. If I look at the L chart, I can say, what if I want to add 7/32 and let's say 5/24? Notice these two numbers are the numbers I put in my L chart. I found the LCM of 32 and 24 originally. If you remember, the LCM was 96. Well, now these are denominators, so we don't call it the lowest common multiple. We call it the lowest common denominator, but it's really the same thing. So I'm going to find the LCD of these two fractions, which is 96. But I'm not even going to use that part. I just need to know that in my mind. So I've made my L chart, and then we can look over at the fractions and say, I'm going to take my 7/32 and I'm going to look diagonally down. Remember that 3? And I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of 3/3. Notice this has a value of 1. So I'm not changing the value of 7/32. I'm getting an equivalent fraction that has the same value, but with a common denominator of 96. So I go ahead and do this by multiplying across. 7 times 3 is equal to 21, and 32 times 3 is equal to 96. And then I do the same for 5/24. And I look diagonally down to the bottom, and I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of 4/4. Please don't say that you're multiplying by 4. You're multiplying by 1 in the form of 4/4, because if you multiplied by 4, you would be changing the value of it. And that is definitely not what you're doing. You are multiplying by 1 in the form of 4/4. And so then when I multiply those together, I get 5 times 4, which is 20, and 24 times 4 is 96. If I did this correctly, then that number should be the same as that number. And since they have the same denominator, I can now add them together, and I get 21 plus 20 is 41. And just like we always do with adding fractions, we keep the denominator when we add them together because they have to be the same denominator. We keep them that same, and so the answer is 41/96. I'm going to show you more examples in the video called adding fractions. So we're going to look at a video called adding fractions. After this video, you can go ahead and find that video on YouTube or on the page. But there you will see more examples using this. I just wanted to show you a special video about using an L chart.